And thank you, panel. That was absolutely amazing. I love it when I'm left with almost nothing to say. I also want to say well done. I realized to my horror I've been coming into this building talking about human rights for almost 30 years, and it didn't look like this 30 years ago. Now look, there's women everywhere. And I think we need to say thank you to all of you who've struggled hard to keep these spaces open, because we all know how hard it is to try to occupy and stay in those spaces. I think we also really need to recognize that progress is not linear. So we need to thank, too, our feminism, which has held us together and enabled us to try for so long and so hard, which also means we mustn't forget why we fought so long and so hard to occupy such spaces, and that is because we want to have an ending of inequality, and we want real participation so that we can have real and fundamental changes in the way in which our communities and our institutions work. I want to remind us that one of the reasons why there was an original opposition to women's participation in the franchise was because they thought we'd be rubbish at war. Well, it's not true that women are rubbish at war, but what a thing to value. That when you're going to use extremities of violence to assert your authority in a dispute, it's not something we should be acclaiming. It's based also on a binary notion of gender. And we know from everything we've been doing for the last 20, 30 years that this is a construct, a cultural, social construct, which serves to institutionalize those systemic inequality which leads to conflict. But we're learning, and I think that Gen Z is well ahead of us in actually helping us to understand the need for us to change our thinking and to change our deeds in relation to how we position ourselves as non-binary, non-sex-based, but as humanity going forward. Now, WILPF is over 109 years old, and Jane Addams, its founder, was a good friend and confidant and ally of Eleanor Roosevelt. She won the Nobel Peace Prize for her efforts in working together to try to understand root causes of conflict. And in those early years, WILPF identified as root causes of conflict inequalities between people and between nations, militarism as a way of thought, and the absolute need for diplomacy, for there to be a multilateral system where discourse would be the way in which we settle dispute. It's still so true. As we've heard today from the panel, as we see around us all the time, there has never been a greater need for diplomacy to overcome the concept of militarism as means of ensuring security. We need to push back against the pushback. I think we've heard a lot in this last council and the one before about changes in thinking, which is actually trying to put women back. As I said, progress is not linear. It morphs, it shapes, it changes. We've got to be ever, ever vigilant in ensuring that what we've gained, we continue to defend and continue to drive forward. I don't think we've got a glass ceiling, because if it was a glass ceiling, it would have shattered and we'd all be there by now. I think of it being a bit more like a membrane, which is there to protect patriarchy. And with a membrane, you can pull it and pull it and pull it and pull it so it's so thin it can no longer provide that defensive wall that's needed. So if we all push together, then I think that that membrane will soon enough disappear and we could go forward to a common humanity and peace. Thank you very much.